Okay, announcements. On Tuesday, April 11th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., we have our voting day, which will occur at the 3 polling locations: James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School, the Merrimack Middle School, and St. John Newman Church. Please contact the Town Clerk Office at 424-3651 or visit the New Hampshire Secretary of State website to find your specific polling location. There are 2 regularly scheduled meetings on the agenda here. Thursday, April 27th at 7 p.m. in the Matthew Thornton Room is a regular meeting. And Thursday, May 11th, again here in the Matthew Thornton Room, a regular meeting. The meeting that would normally occur on Thursday, April 13th is not being held because the 11th is the actual voting. And historically, we've not had a meeting on the same week. And knock on wood, it's a pretty light schedule right now. It will get busy. So there was nothing time sensitive that we needed to meet about, so that there is not going to be a meeting that week. Eileen?
The Merrimack Parks and Recreation Department and Merrimack Friends and Families invite Merrimack families to Wasserman Park on Saturday, April 8th for the 25th annual Easter egg hunt. The event runs from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and groups are divided into separate time blocks so all the children have the ability to find lots of Easter eggs. The Easter Bunny will also be on site, so bring your camera and take pictures of your child with the Easter Bunny. This year we will be handing out 5,200 eggs. Visit the Parks and Recreation Department website for complete details. And that just shows you how many people are interested in this and participate in it. Also, the Merrimack Police Department would like to welcome our new Animal Control Officer, Haley Galino. Haley is responsible for handling all of the animal-related calls in town and is looking forward to working with the residents. This is your last chance to order compost bins and rain barrels at discounted prices. Orders need to be placed by tomorrow, March 24th, to guarantee your orders. Details can be found on the Public Works Facebook page or the town website or by calling the Public Works Department. Thank you.
All set. Paul, you look like you have something to say. So blame him, huh? Okay, PFOA update. There's nothing to report on it, but we are going to have the subject discussed during the new business. There's a citizen group that's talking about maybe having an advisory board, so that information will be discussed later. Comments from the press or public? LaRush. Seeing none. Recognition, resignations, and retirements. Recognition of retirement of a town employee. Town Council will present a recognition award to Richard Blanchard in recognition of his retirement from the Wastewater Division of Public Works with more than 35 years of service from November 30th, 1981 to March 31st, 2017. Mr. Blanchard is not here this evening. We want to wish him the best of health and happiness in his in his retirement. And as I say to people if they're here, stay healthy so you can enjoy your retirement. So thank you for all your years of service and good luck to you. Okay, next, under appointments, MS4 stormwater follow-up discussions with local legislation. We have a lot of legislators here that I'm going to introduce, and I think I'll do it right now. In fact, I wrote it down because I know I'd be blank as soon as I try to introduce you. First, Senator Gary Daniels. I'm not sure if the camera's zooming in so you can do the high sign. Representative Dick Hinch, Representative Chris Christensen, Representative Bob LaRue, Representative Jean Nada, and Representative Tony Pellegrino. First of all, I just want to thank you all for coming tonight. And what I'd like to do, if it's okay with everyone, is have Kyle come up, who is the Director of Public Works, and just to give a real quick summary about what this is about, because the public needs to understand what the MS4 is about before we start talking about legislation, okay? So Kyle, come up. And I know I'm going to mess it up. MS is municipal, hold on, specific sewer, I'm trying to remember. Municipal separate storm sewer system, and that's why it's 4 S's, okay? So it has to do with something we've been dealing with, how long would you say, Kyle, as a topic?
Since 2003.
2003, and there's been recent events that have occurred that's going to really affect Merrimack. So we wanted to be able to, again, have Kyle just give an introduction so the public knows, and then have our legislators who have been invited, unfortunately have come, to help talk about some House bills and House bill and a Senate bill that is dealing with this. So go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for having me, and thank you to the legislative delegation here to talk about this important topic tonight. I'm just going to give you a brief summary of where we are today. The 2017 New Hampshire Small Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, or MS4, general permit is regulated for us by US EPA Region 1 out of Boston, and is regulated through the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES for short. The goal of the permit is to reduce stormwater pollutants running off of impervious surfaces untreated directly into surface waters. The program was set up to comply with the Clean Water Act. The New Hampshire and Massachusetts permits are the most restrictive permits in the United States. Each state has their own permit.
Just to highlight something, because I'm not sure of that, we're talking that national EPA
Correct.
that's what we're talking about, the permits.
Well, the overarching group is National EPA.
Right.
New Hampshire and Massachusetts,
Has its
and our region is under Region 1, which is out of Boston.
Okay.
And they're the permit writers for
As
us.
compared to state. Go ahead.
Correct.
Sorry.
There are only 4 states in the country that are regulated by the EPA. All the rest have been delegated authority by the EPA to manage their own programs. Massachusetts, following the issuance of their new permit in the summer of last year, is in the process of trying to become a delegated state, and so that they can manage their own program, similar to what we're hoping to do through the bills that we're going to talk about tonight. The new permit, as printed and filed on January 18th of this year, 2 days before the administration changed over, will put the town into immediate non-compliance. The permit states that we can't, quote, cause or contribute to an exceedance of water quality standards, unquote. All projects that we do will be subject to more stringent anti-degradation regulations, which is a state and federal regulation. This will make new and or redevelopment projects cost prohibitive and allows state, federal levels to intervene in local development projects. In addition, the permit states that there shall not be any new or increased discharges to impaired waters. Utilizing the EPA cost analysis tools that they provided, the town of Merrimack estimates that the cost of our 5-year permit will be in the vicinity of $3.6 million, or about $720,000 per year, in addition to what we already spend on stormwater. The cost commitments of this permit for the next 10 years, the 5 to 15 year period after this one, will cost in the multi-millions of dollars as well. That's the first 5 years of the permit is when we do all our investigations, testing, setting up programs, doing reports. It's the following 10 years where we actually put structural BMPs into place, which are putting actual pipes in the ground and basins in the things. That will cost millions of dollars. We won't know a true number until we get those permits, of course. Overall in New Hampshire, there are 44 communities saddled with this permit and carry the cost burden to implement its requirements. Merrimack is part of a coalition of towns working together to support the Senate and House bills that we're going to discuss tonight. and work towards the development of a stormwater permit that is good for the waters of the state, but is financially manageable for the municipalities. Currently, there are 14 communities in the coalition, including Manchester, Dover, Rochester, Salem, Londonderry, Bedford, Portsmouth, and Amherst. Additional members are being solicited by the coalition executive committee, and I was told just before the meeting that we have 2 more members as of today. So, with that, I'll turn it over to you guys in the delegation.
Excellent, thank you.
Don Twamala, our town engineer, and I would be happy to answer any questions that come up.
Okay, let me just ask, just again to frame the issue. I'm going to make a statement. Tell me if I'm accurate or not, because it's my understanding if it's not correct, it should be corrected for me and anybody else. Our beef, where's the beef? Our beef is that it's not so much the criteria, because it's a National Clean Water Act criteria. It's the methodology of the procedures by which you get there, whether it be analysis or intervention after, that is, or the regulations, should I say, that are so onerous as compared to potential state DES regulations. And in fact, what's happened with other states is the ones that have not, all the others, was there 4 states you said?
Correct.
Okay. All the others, their state DESs have taken over the process. So although they have to still meet the criteria of the Clean Water Act, how they do that is determined state by state.
That's correct, and that's really for us the big difference.
That's the beef.
Any of these permits needs to meet the criteria in the Clean Water Act, but as we all know, interpretation of a law can vary greatly. And the goal for everybody is clean water. We all want the same thing. It's how do you get there? We feel that the Region 1 EPA has overstepped their bounds in a lot of ways in this permit. And by having DES become the delegated authority to manage the program, we feel we can get a permit that's manageable, affordable, and is written by the people who live in the state, not from people in Boston who are trying to write a permit for everybody, that write a permit that fits every city and town in the region, when we're just very different from Boston, so we should not have the same permit that they have.
Great. The second fact I want validated is we had a question. We know Concord is not under the permitting process.
That's correct.
And we're going, why is Merrimack under a permitting process and Concord isn't? Because remember, the water goes from Concord down.
Correct.
And a lot of what's happening around here is a result of drainage down. And it's based upon the criteria of population, that we are part of a regional area, including Nashua and Manchester, which means that our total population is over 50,000?
What it
Is it
really
50?
relates to, that's part of it.
Okay.
What it really relates to is we're in the urbanized area of Boston, so because that's why it's the southern and eastern parts of New Hampshire that are really targeted in this, and I can't begin to explain how the housing authority came up with their math. Clearly, a city like Concord not being in the program, and a town like Wilton, Limeboro, are in the program. It just doesn't
make sense.
Doesn't
Okay.
make sense.
And that's part of and that's what I wanted to make known for the public, is that adds impetus to us as to, that they are draining into us and we're going to be responsible. The third fact I'd just like to make public is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is prior to the establishment of the final permit criteria, there was a lot of testimony, and part of that had to do with providing evidence as to what the basis upon which they're making decisions were inaccurate. For example, they were using old data from testing of water bodies, upon which they were saying, okay, therefore we need to do this. And that initial data was inaccurate, and evidence was provided to them, but that didn't make a difference. Is that accurate?
That's largely accurate.
Okay.
The original permit that Merrimack is still under was started in 2003. That's when the initial rush of communities in New Hampshire fell into the program. It was intended to be a 5-year permit. We're now on year 14 of the 5-year permit. And so what happened through the years, in 2008, EPA issued a draft permit. There were many, many comments to the tune of the sort that you just stated. So they reissued the permit again in 2013 for draft, and then again, parts of that one again in 2015. Each step of the way, there were volumes of comments from municipalities stating the issues that we all have with the permit. And I guess I'll kind of put some conjecture in here. You know, for me, it feels like we were largely ignored by EPA with the final permit.
Okay, excellent. And the only other, and this is a question. I had read, and I wish I saw where, that Governor Sununu had written a letter to Director Pruitt from EPA requesting that he come and visit. Maybe some of the legislators know about. I remember reading it. It wasn't in my dreams. I got to find it because I wanted to disseminate that. Have you heard anything about that?
Could I speak to that?
Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you,
know?
Madam Chair. As a part of the legal committee, or the
Coalition.
the coalition, thank you. As part of the coalition, the attorneys that represent the coalition engaged Senator Andy Sanborn from Bedford,
Right.
who went ahead and drafted his own letter and submitted that to Governor Sununu for Governor Sununu's signature. Upon review, Governor Sununu made some minor changes to that particular letter, which eventually had his signature and was sent to the
Director Pruitt.
to Director Pruitt as it relates to the MS4
So
program.
it is. There you go. Now, did we just tell the legislators some information? Anyway, but which is good news. And I couldn't remember where it came from. So anyway.
And I guess just finally, I would add that Merrimack's record over the past 14 years during our permit is spectacular in regards to stormwater management. We did the drainage bond projects. We did our sewer extension project next to Natticook Lake last year. Every project we do, it's with stormwater in mind.
Right.
And we've done a terrific job cleaning up our waters. And
But they're not using new data as
Correct.
a result of that to make
That's right.
decisions.
exactly.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it.
And the one point, if I could, Madam
Oh,
Chair,
absolutely.
is one of the things, and Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, that if a community is found in noncompliance, they actually could be fined per day, depending on the type of thing that they're non-compliant. And so, like, as Kyle alluded to, potentially this town's going to be non-compliant on, was it June?
July 1, 2018.
July 1, 2018, immediately we would be non-compliant. Conversations that I had at the NRPC last year with the members from the EPA says, well, we'll work with you. We're not going to automatically start assessing you a fine. But what they don't bother to tell you is that it doesn't stop the Sierra Club or the Conservation Law Foundation or any other third-party advocacy group for, litigating this particular thing and say the town of Merrimack, town of Bow, town of Salem, or what have you, is non-compliant as it relates to A, B, C, and D. And the courts could offer injunctive relief that would basically begin the clock of what the town or the impacted municipality would have to pay in terms of a fine.
We just closed down the town. Okay. Thank you, Bill. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Kyle. And I'm not sure how you want to do this. Have you designated some speakers? Representative Christensen and Senator Daniels. Again, thank you again for coming, and thank you for putting up our quick synopsis so that the public understands what this is all about.
Well, it certainly cuts our information in half, because that was a good idea to do. Thank you. You want to start, or you want me to?
It doesn't matter.
So there
Okay.
was a House bill and a Senate bill.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing that I'm supposed to say is Representative Barry, Representative Moore, and Representative Hines send their regrets that they had other commitments and couldn't come tonight.
Thank you.
So they wished us well and said maybe next time. But anyway, there's a House bill and the Senate bill. Now, you had a lengthy letter about these a couple of days ago, and it referred to a lot of things in Senate Bill 121, which passed today with an amendment, and the amendment basically eliminated the whole bill and made it parallel to the House bill. Now we have two bills, one on each side of the building, doing essentially the same thing, creating a study commission to look at how to achieve the being our own regulatory body, if you will, as opposed to EPA. So that's really the summary. At this point, do you want to add to that?
No, I think we're both about in the same place.
You need to push the button for the
Oh, yeah,
microphone.
Get your.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're both about in the same place. Both the House and the Senate have passed bills. Ours, again, passed today, turning it into a study commission that says that the commission shall determine if the Department of Environmental Services should take over the MS4 permit system from the Environmental Protection Agency, and if so, to recommend a fee structure that would pay for the department to hire the required number of employees to manage the issuance of permits. I think if there's any differences, it's probably in the membership of the commission. Not knowing how the House bill coming over or where the Senate bill is going to end up, it doesn't seem like it's anything that is surmountable and should be easily worked out on membership within a committee of conference.
So help me understand the procedure. So you have two basically corresponding bills that are complementary to each other. Or
Well, we
pretty
do
much-
now. When
pretty
they
much
started
will
out,
be.
they were different, going in
Right,
different directions.
exactly.
But they're
And
similar
so,
now.
And so what is the next procedure? So it passed today, did you say?
In the Senate, it passed, so it'll head over to the House.
Okay.
The House bill, is it
What are
passed
the
already?
odds?
Yes.
Yes, so it'll be coming over to the Senate. I'm sure we'll be talking, each chamber will be talking to the other, and it may be that we'll pass both of them and then sit down as a committee of conference and work out so that we have one thing. Or one bill might get tabled while they work on the other, but it seems though everyone's on the same page right now and working to get to a point where we regain control.
So you have a sense, a positive sense about the eventual outcome?
I took a look through the minutes of the hearing, and I'd be glad to submit those electronically to the council if you would like. There was a lot of good information in there from Senator Sanborn, background, a lot of what Kyle had talked about. But you saw the testimony. I know we had, I think, 3 people from Merrimack. They were up there testifying as well. So it all seems to be in the same vein that we need to regain control. I don't know that there's anybody that's really supporting let the EPA run our lives, particularly with the fines that they're looking at imposing. And I mean, Senator Sanborn goes a little bit further to say that as of July 1st, 2018, you couldn't even do development without
Stop everything?
without DES permission and then
That's true.
EPA permission. So it does go far, far beyond the stormwater type thing. But certainly, anytime we can get the federal government out of our business is a good thing.
Now, so it's for a study, okay? So you might not be able to answer this, but I could ask the question. So is there a time limit on when you want the report to be done by?
Yeah, the
and that would
reports
be-
the reports are due November 1st, 2017, which then gives time for a bill to be
Perfect.
introduced in
For the actual
January of
establishment.
2018 to go through the process.
Wonderful.
But there are other things going on right now. For example, yesterday in my committee, the Resources Committee, we had a hearing on Senate Bill 127, which has to do with adjusting or clarifying dissolved oxygen standards. And that's one of the ways that we measure. You heard Kyle mention impaired waters, and that's very significant in the sense of where you can put your treated water or stormwater, as the case may be. And DES is a little bit behind on their reporting of what's called on the EPA level, the 303D list. Those are the impaired waters. So there's 2 things going on here. One is possible adjustment of the impairment definitions and simplifying that locally, which then translates into this 303D list that goes to EPA. The other end of that is that the list is currently behind schedule, shall we say. Senator Sanborn's bill originally called for that list to be done by April 1st. You run into a scheduling thing there because the bill wouldn't have gone through both houses in time to do that. But as I say, we had this meeting yesterday, and EPA says we're going to have that report, the 2014 report, done by early next month. Then the 2016 report will be out for public comment and reading probably in July, and by the time we get to 2018, we'll be on the schedule. So we should have good information pretty soon that we're going to be able to take to these study committees or commissions. They're actually commissions. Move the process along within the first half of 2018, and so I'm confident that will occur.
Excellent.
The Senate bill is a little bit different. As it goes over to the House, the bill is effective upon passage. So once the House passes it, the governor signs it, it becomes law. Within 45 days, the commission has to get together and be established, and their deadline for reporting is December 1st, 2017.
17.
But we also have different timeframes on filing bills
Okay.
too.
Right.
So
Either way, it's this fall, and it'd be in time for
Correct.
filing something for the second half of this session.
yeah, even if it had to come in through rules as a special.
Okay. Questions? Tom?
Yeah, you're gonna have to go, excuse me, you have to go through the regular process with introducing a bill in the next session, which I presume would authorize the increase in personnel for DES and manage the funding mechanism for all of that. And with the deadline being July 1 of 2018, do you have any sense of how the EPA is going to react to the rules process that will take place after, if the bill passes and you set up the mechanism in the Department of Environmental Services, there'll be a period of time for them to draft rules for them to operate under that statute. Is there and if that happens, it seems to me it's going to be after July 1 when we would be in noncompliance. And how is that going to, I'm just curious as to if anybody's explored with EPA that process.
So it's like the transitioning of it?
Yeah.
That's the language that's in one of the bills about studying the transition. But in the course of doing that, DES will be talking to EPA, and as long as the process is going on, I think we would be very likely to get some sort of extension past July 1st if necessary. But as long as the bill is in place, DES can start drafting rules and have them ready to go as soon as the bill is signed by the governor.
I think I would concur with that, just adding that based on the fact that, we have an EPA site in Milford that has been there for 25 years and hasn't been cleaned up, I think the state can probably move much faster than the EPA. So I would concur that once we...
You mean that project on Main Street?
On Elm Street, yes.
Elm Street, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Knock on wood, that maybe this year. We're getting close. But I think Representative Christensen is correct that once we get into the study committees, we'll work with the departments. There's no reason why they can't start formulating rules and have them ready. I mean, we have a session that runs from January 1st, and in fact, this would be one of the first bills taken up in the new year because of the reporting dates and held over from this year. So we'll know early in the session, probably I think within the first 2 weeks, where we are with the bill. I'd say that certainly people involved with it and legislators like ourselves can certainly work with the department to make sure that they are working on those rules and that they know that July 1st deadline is a real deadline.
Eileen, you had a question?
I don't have a question, but I just would like to, with trying not to beat a dead horse here, but I think it's really important to drive this point home again, that the enactment of this EPA permit is going to cost this town $720,000 per year for 5 years, and which means that our tax rate goes up $2.40, which means that a $300,000 home would have to pay an extra $726 in taxes to pay for this. This is just Merrimack, and after the 5-year period, that may double and triple. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand how urgent it is for you to help us to wend our way through this.
Good points all. I think the key thing in the short term is bringing up to date the impaired waters issue, that 303D list that we talked about. And as that list is brought up to date, I think we'll be in a lot better position to know what needs to be done and so forth to be in compliance. And of course, as we get into our own regulatory situation within the state instead of through the federal program, then we'll be redefining things to get local needs straightened out that we really have some difficulty with dealing with the US EPA. So I don't think we're going to have those numbers instituted, but at this point I think we have to understand that it is going to be a rigorous program, and there will be some expense involved.
Yeah. And I think, just to reiterate, I think there's already been an acknowledgement by what we've done already regarding the belief, philosophical belief in the clean waters. We haven't done the projects that we've invested if we didn't believe that. So I think that's our evidence of our good intentions over these years.
And that's actually one of the problems out there right now, is that DES and EPA are so far behind, they are not recognizing all the good that has been done in the towns. And to your point, Eileen, I mean, I get hit 4 times because all 4 towns of mine seem to be in the same group. So, yeah, it's high on my list.
Bill, you had?
Just a comment, Madam Chair, and I'm not sure the delegation's aware of this, and I apologize if I'm being redundant to the delegation, but Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker just signed a letter asking the feds that Massachusetts wants to take over their permitting process, and as it stands right now, New Hampshire remains the only state under the EPA auspices as it relates to regulating the MS4 permit. And I think we're capable of doing it. And correct me if I'm wrong with some of the stuff that I've read and the testimony by DES that day with Senator Sanborn's bill, I'm gathering that there's a sense of reticence on DES's part on wanting to take on this particular responsibility. And I would hope, and I would publicly communicate that, I wouldn't be asking DES to take on this responsibility if I didn't think they were capable of doing so. I think we've been under the EP umbrella, and we've been, rightly or wrongly, I think we deserve to have Granite Staters taking care of issues that are important to people that live in the Granite State. So I don't want to be the probably the wrong term to use, but I don't want to be the EPA's evil red-headed stepchild. I really don't, as it relates to this MS4 thing. I really don't.
And I guess I feel that if Massachusetts can do it, New Hampshire can do it better.
Right.
And,
Agreed. Well
What a
said.
motto.
I agree with you,
I
Senator.
agree with that.
and that fact did come up in testimony today on the floor, that, you know, we remain the only state. So, and as far as DES, I mean, DES is there to carry out the wishes of the legislature, and the legislature has a responsibility of giving DES the personnel
Right.
and the resources
Resources.
it needs to do the job.
Right. Which is what the study's all about.
It is.
Exactly.
Tom, did you have additional?
Yeah, talking about the redheaded stepchild, I think the EPA got exactly what they wanted, to get this out of their house. And so they made whatever they issued so onerous, and this is completely out of bounds.
Take that.
Yeah, you know, they just made it so onerous that, you know, to force the 4 states' hands to get this out of the EPA, because they don't want to do it either.
Maybe.
You know, there's too much local knowledge that they don't have to sit there and try and put something like this together in a reasonable and sensible fashion. And so they decided, the heck with this, we're going to fix them. We're just going to make this so bad, and, you know, such a fish rotting in the sun, that they're going to leap quickly to take care of the problem. So, you know, they got exactly what they wanted.
They wrote this permit for the Bostons and the Chicagos of the world. They didn't write this for...
They always do.
Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions regarding this? While we have our legislators here, is there anything else anybody wants to be able to, while we have their attention?
Well, I will add that there are several other water bills working their way through the process. One that you've heard about considerably, House Bill 485, which has to do with ambient groundwater quality standards. And
That's right.
that's been retained in finance. We've been working with the MVD and the New Hampshire
That's right.
Waterworks Association to get input from them on costs of implementation and schedules and so forth. And that's really an MVD kind of thing, but I know.
Is finance one of those places where it's like it goes to die? I know that there is some, they went to this, okay, well, that's bad.
It's a fair comment, Madam Chair.
Studies, that's normally what happens in studies. So,
It's not, okay.
That's,
What can you admit?
retaining a bill sometimes is thought of that way. That really applies more to the second year when you retain something for interim study because there's no continuing body. But in this particular case, the bill went through the Resources Committee first, and there was no fiscal note on it. And there was no fiscal information provided at the hearings or the subcommittee work sessions, even though they asked for it. So the night
you need
before it was to go to the floor of the House, we finally got some sketchy information. And the Finance Committee held it because there's a deadline or a time frame under which DES has to supply the fiscal information. So they had to hold it until that information comes in, and also to give the cities and towns that have water systems time to develop their own sets of information. And the other thing that happens in this instance is we think of big water systems like Manchester, Merrimack, and around the state, and there's 36 of them. But there's another 65 or 75 community water systems for condo developments and campgrounds and mobile home parks and that type of stuff. And they certainly don't have the money to either extend water from another source into their local system or to add the expensive filtration systems that might be needed. And then we don't have the testing yet to see if they have PFOA in their water. Maybe they're clean already. So that there's a lot of missing information. And that's another reason for treading cautiously.
So it's still alive?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill?
Just a question to, even after 5 years, I guess I have a newbie question as it relates to fiscal notes up in Concord, but is it fair to say that without the fiscal note on this bill, that legislature could unrightly be accused of issuing an unfunded mandate as it relates to DES's ability to assess what is an appropriate amount or what is an inappropriate amount of PFCs in drinking water, potable water?
In this particular case, the state laws regarding drinking water quality standards and ambient groundwater standards and so forth predate 28A.
Which means what in
Can you put that-
English?
Which means that
That's
there's,
the unfunded mandate statute.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry. He mentioned
that's
this, so
okay. He knows more than I do, so I have to.
so it's essentially a continuation of what has already existed prior to the establishment of the Constitution language. So there would be on shaky ground to try and claim that you were being handed an unfunded mandate.
And to answer your question, Madam Chair, finance is not necessarily where things go to die. It might be a combination of things. In the Senate, we have the the advantage of having a couple more months of revenue than the House does.
Okay.
I've been receiving a kind of extraordinary stack of bills that have money in it, and many of these, if we think that the policy is good, we will pass that and immediately put them on the table, not because we want them to die there, but we don't know what the revenue is going to be at the end of the year. So when we get the budget from the House, we will then go back, prioritize the things that we feel need to be done, look at the bills, what money is in there, and then use the money that we have to fulfill whatever purpose,
decisions.
whether it's to take care of an issue or whether it's to put it away for the rainy day fund to keep our bond rating up. So it's used for many different things. So I say that to just caution you, if you're looking out now and you see that the Senate passed something and you're saying, how could they do that? A lot of it is just to put it there, as I tell people, kind of tongue-in-cheek, there's a growing stack of things on the table that may never make the dinner plate.
Let me add something to that frequently a bill is proposed and it says, let's spend or appropriate $3 million for whatever purpose. It gets to the Finance Committee, they like the idea, but maybe $3 million isn't there. So they may put the language of the bill, not pass the bill, but take the language from that bill and put it into House Bill 2, which is the trailer for the budget, and put some amount of money,
So,
maybe $2 million in this case, into the budget. Or maybe it looks like they have a greater sense of priority and it goes to some other number. But that's part of the budget process, which is why the budget bill, we've passed all our other bills except for April 5th, when we'll have the budget debates.
Finley, did you have a question?
Since you gave the opportunity, the Highway Safety Committee, on which I sit, has been talking about over the past couple of years, the Airport Access Road ramp, where the northbound exit merges with the southbound ramp coming to Route 3 in town here. It's terrible visual. It is believed to be by everybody that I've spoken to except DOT to be a hazard. Their initial we had sent off a couple of letters to the state, and their initial letter said they could see the problem and they were contemplating excavating back to a good degree the berm that blinds you from the northbound ramp. And then a year later said no, they didn't see any problem. So I'm just putting it out on the table. If there's anything you could do in a conversation with those folks, that if it's a matter of moving the dirt, that can't be too doggone expensive. It's, but I'm not an engineer, so if that were
Not only that, it's turnpike
percolate-
money.
Pardon me?
Not only that, it's turnpike money.
Well,
It's
true,
not-
but
It's not,
it's definitely a hazard. If you have a vehicle, a larger vehicle that has limited sight distance on the side, a truck, vans without windows. You hit that, if you don't know about it, you hit that, you're in deep trouble. Once you know about it, people use it regularly. We anticipate and, catch the thing perfectly. But it is a hazard, and if you could say anything to anybody, I'd appreciate it.
We have talked about that several times, so I'm
And I
glad you
just said
remembered.
that, and I was like,
Take
this-
advantage of while they're
it's too
here,
good.
that's
I was gonna
right.
say, thank you, because I hadn't heard that before. So,
While you're here,
I have-
anything else? Tom?
Yeah,
See, we're really taking advantage of
Is
you
there-
guys while you're here.
it's my understanding that there's another bill in there that deals with air quality and air quality testing for the emissions that weren't tested for coming out of San Gobain because they didn't have the equipment and they didn't have the authority to test it. And I was just, I don't know. Do you know anything about it, or I don't have I didn't go look up the bill, see if I could find the bill.
It's House Bill 463,
Okay.
and that passed the House today.
Okay. Good. Okay. And my second.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, I mean, is there anybody else that has anything else?
Apparently not. We
Okay,
still
'cause-
have-
Because I have a question on Senate Bill 128.
Look at Garrett.
go ahead.
They'll never come back.
Well,
Go for it.
Which version?
if I don't know, I took the one off of the website today. So, if it's been operated on since then it hasn't been updated, and I haven't seen any of the amendments.
It's been
Can
operated
you-
on
can
about
you
4 times.
Educate us
Tell us
as
what
to
it's
what you're
about.
talking about?
Yeah, that has to do with electric utilities. And I'm hearing loads of information, and it seems I'm getting a lot of emails that are based on maybe the original bill. I mean, there are a number of people who think that this is going to raise electric rates and that the ratepayers will be funding natural gas.
Oh, yes, now we know what you're
That the latest amendment has made it clear that no money will go to fund that. Then there's objections, well, there's stranded costs that the electric rate payers are going to have to pay up. I have talked to who I feel is a trusted source on ratepayers association. He said, acknowledges the bill probably isn't the best, but he said, I think I would vote for it. He said it does seem to be a step in the right direction. So, but we special ordered that for next week. So that's on my agenda to just try to sort that out, because I think unfortunately there's a lot of misinformation going around, and I just need to find out just what it is, because it seems like everyone who has been involved in one of the pipeline towns
Right.
is, saying, vote against this, we're watching you. On the other hand, you've got people who are saying, well, this is a step in the right direction, and no, it's not going to affect those. And then there are those from the North Country who said, well, if it's got an
Yes.
exception in there for the pipelines, then what about the transmission lines and the solar and the windmills and all that kind of stuff? So, somewhere along the line, we have to look past tomorrow and start looking down the line 5 or 6 years and realize that we are going to be losing an amount of power on the grid that we're going to have to find a way to replace. Otherwise, we're going to be picking twigs off pine trees and using that for fuel. So somewhere, someone's not going to be satisfied with the vote. But we need to at least have our options open. And, I get the message on the pipeline. I talked with Liberty Utilities many times during that process, and I came out again. I talked with Liberty Utilities, and they told me that they could guarantee no benefit
Right.
to Amherst, Milford, and Merrimack. And it was at that point I said, well, if you can't guarantee any benefit to my communities, there's really no reason for me to support the thing if you're going to send the natural gas up to the more populated areas of Manchester or Concord or somewhere else. So I have my finger on the pulse of that. I understand, and I'm putting a lot of trust in Kevin Avard senator from Nashua, because he
Yes.
he was heavily involved with Nashua and Hollis, and, his district runs out across there. He's on energy. He's chairing energy right now. And so he is one of the people that I would go and consult with as to the good and bad in the bill. So suffice it to say that, I will not make a decision uninformed.
Well, I'm glad I asked the question, Senator. Thank you for that update, because that's, the normal legislative process. I didn't know where the status was, because I didn't go to the section where you look up where it is and where, what's happened to it. But
And unfortunately,
And is it-
the latest amendment came out today,
yeah, okay.
or yesterday, and I'm not sure that they necessarily post those before they're brought forward
No, they're
on
usually
the
not.
floor, so you don't have the advantage of
Yeah.
knowing what the latest stuff is that we're talking
Well,
about.
okay, well, I'm glad I asked you,
Yeah.
because that
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, too.
that clarifies a lot of activity that's been going on. I thank you again for that. And, oh, by the way, if it wasn't fun, you wouldn't do it, right?
Absolutely, I'm there for the I'm there for the
For the
money.
big bucks, yeah. We do that for the same reason. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I want to again thank you very much. You've really answered a lot of questions. I personally feel relief, and we're heading in the right direction. There's no promises, but you are addressing the needs that we've identified, and the public will know what our legislators are doing, and you're doing us in good stead, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any of the other legislators who were sitting quietly in the benches?
I just wanted to say the latest of the two bills, I'm gonna give to Paul. He can make copies and give it to you.
Thank you.
That's as of today.
Thank you. Okay. Public hearing none, legislative updates, we certainly got that, didn't we? We should have asked, is there anything they wanted to say? Town managers report.
Okay, the LED streetlight project is more than 90% complete. The project will be completed within the next few weeks and includes installing the remaining fixtures and performing a final audit on the town streetlights to address any outstanding issues. The Parks and Recreation Department has released its new spring and summer activities guide. The new brochure features more than 120 different programs and events that will be held between April and August. Printed copies are available at Town Hall, the library, and the O'Leary Center, and at Wasserman Park. Brochures can also be viewed online by going to www.merrimackparksandrec.org. Thank you.
Nancy,
Yes,
on the streetlights, they seem to be coming on early than they need to, at least the one outside my house. Okay.
well,
Comes on.
They know you like light.
The sun's still up and it's coming on. So,
It's not responding to daylight savings, I guess, huh? Oh, that was bad.
it's probably some small tweak they have to make to the system. Either turn the sensor or do something for sensitivity. But I
I'm glad you told us while they're still in town.
Yeah,
So,
well,
yeah. No, seriously.
Okay, no consent agenda, no old business. New business. Lauren, you want to come up? And anyone else? Is it Laureen? Okay. Citizens for Clean Water, submitted by Laureen Allen, introduced PFOA Support and Information Group, and review facts and proposed direction, including consideration of PFOA Advisory Board. And I'll have you introduce your cohort here. I
heard about pushing the button. I've never done this before. I'm like, oh
You
my
got the
goodness.
message.
Lorraine Allen. I live here in Merrimack since 1985. I am also a licensed clinical social worker and a business owner of Family Guidance Center in Milford, very close to the Superfund site, which he's spoken of. So back before I was in private practice, I did a lot of work in community needs assessment, some grant writing, and working with some communities 20 years ago anyways on some tough issues. So as we have gone through this issue over the last year with PFOAs, hearing this about a year ago and saying, what are they exactly? I've watched the process in addition to the information, and I've seen a lot of a combination of misinformation, not enough information, contradicting information. As you know, people have been concerned. They have questions. Still to this day, after a year of getting information, they still have questions. So I know Carol and other folks in town were very involved in this issue last year, and I was following it and contributing and gathering information. In January, I decided to step in and try to lend my skill set because my concern was not just the division, but hearing that a lot of different factions on the state level, on the local level, everyone's well-intended. In New Hampshire, we do a great job, coming together, but very not divided opinion-wise, but divided information-wise, very compartmentalized is what I saw. Talked to a lot of residents in the last couple months, talked to a lot of experts on this area, because when I decide that I'm going to roll up my sleeves, that tends to be who I am. I tend to say I want the facts. I'm not going to put myself out to the community till I feel really qualified to do that. So over the course of this journey, just since January, right? My gosh, we have assumed so many different roles. So one of those that I have done personally is reaching out to academics, scientists, toxicologists, reading a lot of studies for myself, because I'm not that person who sees the article and says, oh my God, I want to know, what are the sources and what do I think. I do have some background in research and statistics. I'm able to read that data. So I reached out to Boston University, Department of Public Health, the two of the most prominent folks in the country who've traveled the world on PFOAs and health study monitoring in particular, Greg Howard and Madeline Scammell. That's, I don't want to butcher her name. They were very responsive. There's a Courtney Kerrigan from Harvard University who lives in Portsmouth, I found out, which I didn't know till about a month ago. She has a National Institute for Environmental Health grant that she's applied for to work with the Pease community with their issues with PFOS and the Coakley landfill. So she is a great wealth of information. Philip Grandjean at Harvard University also, Richard Clapp also at Northeastern, and a group out of UMass Lowell that I just discovered earlier in the month called, I have it written down here, I'm going to give you these info sheets about a group afterwards, the Toxic Use Reduction Institute out of UMass Lowell. Their goal, they invited us to a meeting next month, but I work, so I can't go. They are establishing a comprehensive academic database down at UMass Lowell, all about PFCs. And their goal is, and BU is also doing the same thing, to amass information that any member of elected officials, public, community impacted, whoever it may be, can access and just get in there and peruse and get that information that we need. So they have put out a lot of questions to communities and publics over what do you need, including ourselves. So Carol and I were invited.
Carol, you haven't been introduced.
Yep. Okay.
There you go.
I'm Carol DePiero. I'm sure many of you remember me. I'm a citizen of Merrimack. And you recall I was involved in the whole fight against the pipeline, and the main reason I got involved was because I heard it was going through our water supply. And I thought, oh my gosh, if our water supply gets tainted, and then we went through all that, and we come off that to find out that our water is contaminated and has been for 20 years. So I felt like I couldn't look away. I'm a resident of over 20 years. My son is born and raised and only drank Merrimack water. And I know a bunch of kids, and we know, between the two of us, we know sick kids, we know kids with unusual illnesses. So a bunch of people just got together and started talking. Some of them who are so ill they can't really participate in stuff. And so Laureen and I are trying to collect information, kind of be their voice, kind of be a resource to them. This is a toxin in our water. It is a carcinogen. And we are watching that bill, HB 485. And yeah, we know all about it. And so, we're just trying to understand all the sides of this and not necessarily confront everybody, but understand, present it, work together to figure out the best solution here, because we do have contaminated water. It is contaminated, Dan. I'm sorry.
Sorry, colleagues, I'm not going to stand here and let that happen.
Well, you got to do your...
You can't come into the room and say that our town has our contaminated water. It's untrue.
It has PFOAs and PFCs in
Sorry.
it, which...
Sure, you have opinions and you're entitled
No, this
to
is
them.
not an opinion. This is
We do
scientific
not have a
fact.
contaminated water supply in the town of Merrimack.
Are there not PFOAs and
There's
PFCs in our water?
PFOAs everywhere in the planet Earth.
There are, but
Yes.
at different levels. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
But they are at different levels than they are in this town.
Yep.
And we need more testing, which is part of why we're here,
Okay.
is to pursue that kind of, and get more information so we're
Okay.
not arguing and we're working together.
Okay.
That's our goal.
Okay.
I think part of the thing, and I have to admit, I had a little bit of a reaction, but I control myself.
Yeah, you know I can't, so.
I think when you talk about contamination, I think that is a scare word. That doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge that there are issues. We also have a lot of nitrogen in the water. We have a lot of phosphorus. We have a lot of salt. We have a lot of other things that could be, and I'm not saying it's on the same level as PFOAs, but I think when you use the word contamination, you're talking about toxicity, which is a scare tactic.
It's an emerging contaminant.
Right.
As
But we
state
don't,
defined it.
we as, and I respond to that. I think I appreciate the importance of it. But the last thing I want to do is scare anybody and overreact to something we need to deal with, but not to the point where we're going to scare anybody. Because when we're talking about MVD water,
Mhm.
and we have to deal with facts, and we can debate about the level that's acceptable or not, but we are well below that. So I think that doesn't mean we still aren't observant and we intervene. But I think we do need to be cautious, and that's what Dan is responding to, and I don't totally disagree with him.
Okay.
So I'm just
Well,
asking
we need
to
to
be
research this
cognizant.
together.
We have to be cognizant of the scare words. That doesn't mean there isn't concern. But I don't want the public to think that the water's contaminated, that you don't drink it. There's enough facts we could argue and debate about.
Yeah, there probably are.
Okay. So go ahead. Go ahead with
Lorraine.
it. I'm not
Take
sure if
over.
anybody else wants to.
Yeah, I do. I agree with Dan. This isn't W.R. Grace. Woburn,
Oh,
civil action. Okay, we're not talking about kids having growths. Okay, I'm on your Facebook page. I read everything that you folks put out there, and I appreciate what you're doing. I do. Okay, but this council had Senator Ayotte here, begging her to write a letter to the EPA just so that we could have a limit, so that we could have some type of an understanding as to what is an appropriate level. And until such time that our wells get above 70, okay, I cringe when I hear the word contamination, because we do have issues. I'm not going to put blinders on. I continue to drink the water. My wife does. My daughter does. My dogs do. Okay? Because the standards that have been established, the water quality at the MVD is below the established standards. And until such time that the state decides to, pull a Vermont and get down to 20, then I might agree with you, okay, that they're above that particular, but we're not at the Vermont standard. We're at a 70. And until such time that the wells get above 70, I think using that word it's the worst thing to be communicating to people. It really is. I want to fix the problem.
Yeah, we want to fix it.
the problem.
We
So let
want
me
to
be
keep
upfront.
everybody in town healthy.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've been trying to do my job as one counselor, trying to do things that I feel are befitting to help this community, to put information in their hands so that they can make an informed decision as to whether they should be drinking with the water, cooking with the water, bathing with the water. Okay? I think we all have in our own way, we've tried to do that. So I agree with Councilor Dwyer. I agree with the chairman. Using a word like contamination, I have flashbacks to W.R. Grace because I grew up with that. I have friends that live in
I
Woburn.
did not.
I did.
Okay, I had friends who lived in Woburn. I can remember the age of 7, going to get a glass of water. No, you don't want to drink that water. Because the tanneries that were in Woburn were so toxic that it caused a huge problem. We were not just the kids, but with grown adults and the elderly. It was a huge problem. And they're still paying for it to this day.
Okay, I'm
This
sorry
isn't
I
W-
used
this
a
is-
word that
that's-
upset
when-
you.
When I think contamination, I think W.R. Grace. I think like Erin Brockovich out in California. That's what I think. What we have here is a problem. It doesn't rise to the level of Barstow, California. It doesn't rise to the level of Woburn, Massachusetts. We need to be working together with the
Yeah, we need to be working
and we-
together.
correct.
That's the point.
Okay? And I apologize if I'm getting red or getting flustered, and I do apologize, but I get offended when I hear words like that, because it impacts our community, everybody in this community. Language like that impacts us.
Let me say 2 things about that word, because I know what you're saying. First, when I leave you this, I'm going to leave you this sheet about this group and what we're doing. It's very transparent, and the word contamination is in it there, I promise you. But on the DES website, that big red banner at the top says PFO contamination investigation. So that's why maybe we've become familiar with using that word. And also, I know you are on the Facebook group, and other people post on there. The New Hampshire Safe Water Alliance posts on there. The
Remember that too?
folks on the Seacoast who have sponsored the bipartisan efforts on these bills have posted on there. But I ask you that, have you read anything that you feel is inflammatory or offensive to you that I have written or Carol has written on
No,
that
because
topic?
to me,
I'm
on that
glad.
particular, that's a
Okay.
social medium. I prefer to try to do as much as I can here in the forum
Yes,
here, so that the
yes.
general public can
All
hear
right.
how I stand.
Yes,
Okay.
I just
And I'm
wanted
not-
to ask you if you felt
And
that we were some kind of a radical, if you will,
I'm
because
not
I
going-
don't think we are.
I am a fierce and vocal defender of the Bill of Rights. So if you want to get on there and say whatever, I may not agree with what you have to say. I will fight for your right to say it.
But you haven't read anything that I've written that's been offensive in,
Even if
yeah.
you had, Laureen,
because I haven't.
even if you had, Laureen, I'm not going to go out there publicly
I get you.
and say to you, I'm
Yes.
offended by what you wrote.
Right.
I might pick up the phone and call you
My
and
number
say,
is on the sheet.
and say, and Carol knows, I've talked with Carol, especially in the pipeline.
Yes.
And I think you should know that I'm very accessible in this community, so that if I say something that offends you, I would hope you would pick up the phone and call me. Because I certainly want to be accountable for the things that I do here in town, representing the town.
Yes. So in the
Okay,
2
so
months,
why don't you continue?
in the 2 months,
Hold on a
interestingly
minute.
enough on that,
Oh,
in
I'm
the-
sorry,
Hold on,
Tom.
hold on.
I didn't
Did
see
you write,
it.
who wrote this?
I don't know.
Who wrote
I
this?
can't-
Somebody wrote it because it came in my packet.
We all got that, this came from you guys.
Came from somebody when it was
I
submitted
just
with-
can't see what that is.
Why
Let
don't-
me see
Paul's
what that
gonna
is.
give you a
I have
copy.
the Citizens for Clean Water. Yes. That was written by a group of people who were looking at the bills, the sponsors of the bills. Yeah. And why, what's the problem with this?
Well, go down to paragraph 2, first line. There is evidence in our community. What's the source of the evidence and what's the evidence?
Let me just
Is it
read.
anecdotal?
Wait, let me.
Is that what you were talking
Evidence
about?
of chronic health conditions. Well, it
Seems to be anecdotal.
there is a bill that just passed that's looking at a chronic disease registry and chronic health conditions
That's
in
not
the
what I'm asking you.
Chronic?
That's not what I'm
All right.
pointing out.
Oh, so you're saying, do we have chronic health conditions?
Well,
Where's
no,
the evidence?
there is evidence. What evidence?
Evidence in our community of
Yeah.
chronic health conditions,
Yes.
meaning people who have diagnoses. And then it says known to be associated with. It doesn't say caused by. Known to be associated with PFOA exposure. You know,
So
there's
how was that information gathered?
that information is gathered by people coming forward and giving that information.
To who?
It's being collected. We have collected some of it because people have been said, who do we tell about this? Who do we tell about this? Also,
So this is all anecdotal.
anecdotal based on community members stating that 100 people were in the room across the other town building about a month ago, meeting with one of our town residents who's an attorney who, I'm not a real litigation person, but they do have, as you know, civil action suits that have been filed. I'm not involved in those at all, but people, I went to hear what people were saying, and I just sat and listened, person after person, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, prostate cancer, cancers that are rare and only found in pediatrics, over and over and over. The whole room was full of people. It was quite astonishing. So I don't consider that anecdotal.
And I want to
Well,
add,
it
I
is.
think
I'm
some
sorry.
of the wording comes from the Seacoast and the pediatric cancer cluster out there.
Yes.
I think when they say our community, I think they're not saying necessarily Merrimack. I think it was a greater community, that there is a cancer cluster out towards the Seacoast.
So
And I
if-
think-
I don't, I,
Go ahead, John.
I don't doubt that, okay, based on what I have seen, from what competent medical authorities have done to investigate that stuff, and it's highly probable that something like that exists out there. But you're trying to transfer that to here, in my opinion, or somebody's trying to transfer it.
Well, I think I think there's a lot of people in town who are saying, can we get together and just organize that data? Can we tabulate that data and see what we have? There is that voice in town. They have approached and asked for that. So what are you going to do? You're going to say, no, we shouldn't do that. It's only anecdotal. These are folks, I've had calls with people asking me, and I say, I'm not a doctor, about health conditions. Do you think that could be caused by? I said, you can check with this expert and this expert.
But
So
again-
I am giving them the people to ask.
But
I am
again,
not answering
this
those
document
questions.
is using, for lack of, it's not the right word, but it's inflammatory language in here to get people incited about this when you're saying there is evidence.
You're implying.
You're implying that something's going on. There are reports. That's different,
Okay.
okay, than
You like
evidence.
that word is okay.
Okay, if you
All
go
right.
down to the fourth paragraph, second line, we can assume that Merrimack residents have had exposures above the levels that would be expected given the presence of a corporate giant.
That's an
Inflammatory
assumption.
language again,
Assumption.
okay? With a dismal history and, highly subjective, all right? History of litigation, there are contaminants elsewhere, okay?
That's true.
So and then you bring in the issue of New Jersey. I live 40 miles from Deepwater, New Jersey. You know what Deepwater, New Jersey is? The DuPont plant. Okay? I spent 21 years there. All right, so did I bring it from there? If I have anything like that? Because I went and had my blood tested. And by the way, only 153 people
Signed.
have shown up to have their blood tested when they need 200. And they're out for their third
They've
round.
sent over 700.
Yeah. They're out for their third round. So, I don't get it because, if you have 700 people go out and you have 200 and some odd register for the thing and only 153 of them show up, probably those 6 who went out because there was only 147 3 weeks ago, those 6 people heard about this thing and decided they were going to go have it done. Okay? To me, they're yawning. They're yawning.
Meaning not showing concern.
Yeah, it's not an issue. Because if it was an issue, they would have had this 200 done much quicker through the first round. It would have been done if people felt that they were that threatened.
Some of the folks are concerned about the questionnaires. What I've heard, it's very invasive. Some are concerned about privacy. People have also been inferring, because the state has asked Saint-Gobain to fund the blood tests, so the concern is that they will have access to their data.
The
So-
survey was a laugher.
Yeah.
It didn't even go
I'm telling
into
you what
some of
I've
the
heard,
things that they could
what
have
I've heard
asked.
from people.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
he's done it.
That's just the type of
Teacher.
things that people have said. So that is anecdotal. That's what people have said. We
You
can
know?
call that
I think that's
anecdotal.
part of the difficulty,
Right.
is that we're hearing second, third, innuendo kind of thing, and you admit that statistics, and I'm not a statistical expert by any chance, but I
Yes.
understand statistics too. And that's where you get the facts.
Right.
That's
Everything
what we're
And the
else.
aiming
DuPont,
for.
are you familiar with the
that's why-
DuPont a lawsuit that went on in New Jersey and,
Oh, yeah.
and the New Jersey Water Institute?
Yes,
So
But
there's
that
some,
was-
and Saint-Gobain has been involved in litigation in many,
I
many
understand that.
places.
But that
And-
you're transferring and
Right.
making assumptions based on that rather than on fact. And that's why these blood studies are so important, because those are the things that will identify the facts as to if there's clusters and is there a correlation.
Exactly, but we need the
Between-
data,
That's
data.
right.
And they have not, I had suggested a while ago that maybe to get that 200, which they're not going to release till they get to the 200, and people are waiting and waiting and waiting, who had blood draws, and they're concerned. There are some anxious people. I've been tuning into that. I am tuning in. I am not inflaming them.
Right, I
And I think
understand.
the attorneys have come to town. I went to that meeting to hear what was being said, because it was important to me. I didn't find it to be inflammatory, which was surprising, actually. It honestly was surprising. I had no idea what I was going to hear. I'm very cynical about, law is important, but, getting people to sue and things like that. I tend to be rather cynical about that. So it was very responsible. There was a Skype in from a toxicologist. There was
But
a lot of good
just
information.
To be able to, and you can probably appreciate this, you can have clusters, but it's very difficult to isolate what the causative factor is. You'd have to do other correlating studies to be able to rule out
But-
other things, like
yes.
let's say it's Crohn's disease. You're
Right.
saying Crohn's disease.
Yes.
Okay, what is Crohn's disease in the general population?
Exactly.
And you have to be able to do
Exactly.
a
That's the
comparative
data.
study.
That's the data we need to
And
gather
we're
in New
only
Hampshire.
at step number one, and I think part of the difficulty is that when you're saying it is evident, this has happened other places, you're making the jump before the data is available.
Well, the data is coming from some premier people on PFOA experts in particular. PFOS is different. There's different illnesses related to that.
Right.
Certain pediatric cancers are more associated. It seems to shut off the gene called, there's a cell called a killer cell or something that is supposed to get out there and zap bad things in our body. PFOS in particular shuts that off. I just
it.
read
And
2 days
that's-
ago a 144-page study by the National Toxicology Institute under the National Department of Public Health, Environmental Health in particular, 144 pages, very, very definitive about
But
these
even
chemicals.
when you say that, and I believe you,
Yes.
you have to look at the general population of the
Right.
town. What would be the expected incidence
Exactly.
of that particular
Exactly.
thing in this
That's what a
population?
lot of these studies
And
are.
is that
Yes.
population more than what would be expected in general
Exactly.
population,
Right.
which would determine a cluster?
Absolutely.
And at that point, you do the correlation.
Right.
And that my problem is, which I think people are reacting to,
Mm-hmm.
is people are making that leap, which may in fact occur down the road.
Right.
It
We
may
don't
not.
know. Right.
Right.
We
And
don't
but
know.
we're seeing people responding as if that is that way.
Well, we have
And as a
exposure.
result, people are getting anxious over something that may or may not be reality.
I haven't heard people anxious about.
my God.
No. But this is, yes, we have some people. There was a senior citizen who contacted me, 83-year-old woman who moved here last July, and she said, I just want to know if I can take a bath in it. I'm not going to say, filter your water, blah, blah, blah. So what I say to people is, well, at this point, we're under the advisory of 70. But people are looking at that. Now, here's an interesting fact about the 2 months of testimony from committee, which Chris Christensen heads on Bill 485. In all the presentation, Carol was up there for some of that. I wasn't up there. But the end vote, after going through committee and stuff, I have here, I wrote in this, what I'll give you afterwards, 335 to 29. or House representatives in New Hampshire. 6 of our town representatives voted for, 1 against. That's fine. We dissent. We have different opinions here based on what they heard in facts, in studies. And Dr. Chan, about a week and a half ago, actually made the comment. I was trying to find a copy of it, and it took me way too long. I ran out of time. But what he stated is, when they were talking about that bill when it was in finance last week, he said, well, if this bill passes, it's going to be a big fiscal impact, because within 60 days, we'll have to set our state levels at 20. That was kind of interesting, because nothing in this bill names a number. It says, let's get data that's right for New Hampshire given the circumstances we have. So he's been playing it cool for a long time. He's a scientist, whatever. When he said that publicly, I said, so
What's
that...
he basing that on?
He's never said a thing like that. So he's basically saying that the level should be 20, and given a review of the data, it will be 20. Now, that got me thinking. We know here in Merrimack we're coming in with 7 and 8, 27, 38. Those are the levels coming up. They're under 40. Some places say 40 is good. They're over 20. We don't have unlimited sums here in Merrimack and New Hampshire. I know this. I'm pretty good with my own money. So that gets me thinking, But part of that regulatory rate by the state allows them, because they do regulate it. At least they don't just consider it an advisory in New Hampshire. They have gone and said, hey, you broke the law and you're going to pay for the blood tests and you're going to pay for the water tests, and this is what you're going to do. And we're going to send you these letters, and they're going to say we're not responsible, and I've seen all those letters. So for him to come forward and say the rate would be 20 within 60 days, I don't know what that means, because the bill has been amended several times, and they have stated, let's give it a phase-in time. Let's consider the fiscal. The fiscal was never attached because DES never gave the fiscal in the beginning, because they have really been against the bill. And maybe they're overworked. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know.
As you observed,
I heard in the last process. It's a similar parallel.
Let me help you cut to the chase.
Yes.
Okay. I think we can talk about a whole bunches of things.
Right.
But I think you have a very educated council here. Okay. So what are you asking for?
I'm not asking for you to come out in support of bills, and I'm not asking you to tell us what's going on and all this. What I'm stating in the letter that I also wrote, so you have it, for your records, is first I'm making the point that we were asked to present at a conference the beginning of March, which we did. We were approached by academics and scientists, rather disheartening, because I love this town, raised my kids here, and I love it. And they said, well, we'd like you to do a case study presentation. So they contacted me, and I said, wow, are we a case study? We are a case study in the academic world. We sure are. So like it or not, we are.
We're the very beginning.
We
That's
are.
right.
And all over the country and the world, there are more of them. We're not the only one. So, they wanted to talk about that. The topic of the workshop that they asked us to participate in was entitled, the subtitle was, Do You Need a Health Study? Which was about data gathering. This is why I participated, because I'm big on facts.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that I've noticed is in the course of that conference, we had a very, very educated population attending. People were academic and stuff. Very, very informative. Not inflammatory. I didn't know what to expect down there in Boston at Northeastern, if people were going to be all protesting or whatever. And what I found is responsible people who had lots of information that really felt that we wanted to bring this community. So we decided to start a website, which is going to be a physician link, because our physicians don't know what to do with this. Mine doesn't. Carol works for St. Joe's Hospital.
Yeah.
They are not
They've
informed.
received nothing from the state.
The state said that they would provide that.
Right.
So what I have is resources from other states. They said, yes, in fact, there is a good piece of literature that's a medical monitoring guidelines for physicians. Very sensible. It says if you've been exposed and your blood test says this, and you're this age, then this is what your doctor should look for. The reason is they don't look for things that they don't expect. When you're 50, they say, get this test.
Like
At 60,
Lyme
that
disease.
test.
They don't look for Lyme disease
Right.
till it's the last.
So, knowing that there is exposure in a community, at the levels individually, we're all different. We don't know what they are at this point. But they should be screening for certain things. And that link can be on our website. So we are really proposing that there's a support and information group that I've organized that will be at the library Monday night at 7:30. My point there is so many people have contacted and reached out and private messaged and things like this looking for information. They also need support, you know. So support isn't to organize and, you know, rise them all up. Support is
Information,
they're
yeah.
asking basic questions that I know I can answer, and I can give them those links to people because those links are there, that data is there. So that's part of what we're doing.
So
We're
you're-
asking for...
So you're coming to really make it the public aware
Right.
is what you're here for.
I'm a
Is
social
to make
worker.
the public
Public
aware
support and awareness
of
is what I
your
do.
existence, way of contacting you, the general kinds of things that you're
Links
dealing
to
with.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
We are a
So it's
resource.
informational.
And we will
Okay.
continue to be. We are
Gotcha.
attending a conference in June at Northeastern, and there are folks who are caring, compassionate people, and what they do is this stuff. Now what they're finding is their expertise can be applied and given to communities. So we do know in a DuPont lawsuit that their exposure in that community was 50 parts per trillion. They had significant health issues that all kinds of DuPont settled and agreed to biomonitoring, blood works, everything under the sun, all kinds of, whatever the damages are personally, I don't even know. I didn't break it down. But that was that. So my suggestion for you to consider is that I've talked a little bit to the MVD. I went to a meeting of theirs the end of last month. It wasn't their 4 o'clock meetings. I can't make those. It was their meeting about just the warrant articles and the budget.
Okay.
Did a little talking to Tony Pellegrino afterwards, and also to which
Ron
one?
Minor?
Yes, yes. I was thinking Lon and Ron. I had to stop for a minute to get
Because Lon
knock
is
the-
there too.
Yes, he was. So we talked. We asked if they'd be open to a little more information. They said yes. We get information from the state.
Okay.
They were fabulous.
Right.
And I also said, when people call and say, "Is our water safe?" and you guys are saying to some people, which I've heard, it's absolutely safe, no problem. I know why you're saying that. I know you want to reduce anxiety, but what I would request is that you say something like, we are well under the current federal advisory level, and, you know, something like that. Because when you say, I guarantee you're safe, and we have people who do have health issues that are related, that makes me a little uneasy.
Didn't mean
Go
to
ahead,
interrupt. Maybe
Finley.
related. I think that's the concern of everybody. I don't
Go for
have
it.
to go there, but just,
No.
I think that's what the conversation is, that it may be related, because we don't know.
Right, right. Maybe
Right.
get some
Did
of
you
the,
want-
Sorry about that.
maybe ask like Chris or something to give you, here's a suggestion, the packet that was presented there to his committee that did show studies and did do scientific and medical, and they did have a lot of that stuff, and the House had it too. That's why they did vote 335 to 29 in support of this bill in
water quality.
particular. So that would be a good packet maybe to get
Sure.
for the town, you know?
Jackie, I saw you raising your hand. Did you want to make a
Yes, I
comment?
did. I'm a little out of context now, but I did want to say something. I've heard nothing in the room from you folks or the councilmen that is false. I think we have different definitions and different ways of looking at things. I have been in town for 50-some years and have seen various emergencies come and go, and some of them cast Merrimack in a very bad light. And I think that when Merrimack is cast in a bad light, it makes us all nervous. We love the town, and we think, and I personally think very much so, that we have been quite proactive on this. However, when I see more eyes and ears coming in, I frankly cannot see a downside. I really cannot. And I like citizens stepping forward. You have done more than step forward. And I know that there might be disagreement, again, in the room, but if you can gather data and so forth, we could possibly regret profoundly that we didn't do something and that something didn't ring a bell with us. I have frankly read by reputable people about these, and some people say that no level is safe.
Yes.
And on the other hand, we get federal levels of 70, 90.
And it's
What's
very
Vermont
confusing.
10?
20.
Now, what's
Well, they went from
there,
400 to 100 to 70.
Yeah.
That's, and
Yeah.
you know
In
what
like
they
a
said in
year.
the last presentation about the EPA being a little behind in their facts and data? Sadly, that is true.
Yeah.
So the goal in New Hampshire here with the group from the Seacoast is to get information to New Hampshire that's right for New Hampshire. And I'm
I
a big
think people
believer
have
in
been
that.
Making a great effort at the town level and MVD, and so far, it doesn't look, it looks like it might settle down into some very, scientific solutions to this problem, and it might not. And I frankly do welcome this. I don't know whether you were going on to say that you wanted to be official. I don't think you do. I think you just want to come and bring us some, I would like
Right. Yes.
to be brought information other than through an official source.
Yes,
I don't
yes.
see the bad thing about that.
The
I
Turi
love to
group
get calls. I
at
love to
UMass
hear
Lowell is
things.
amazing. Amazing what they've
That's all I
compiled.
really wanted to
Yeah.
say.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Accurate information, because when I sit
Yeah.
before you and I'm talking, I'm very well aware, as the people in Concord did find out when they started talking in January, that the Seacoast folks in particulars have been dealing with stuff for a year or two, a couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
So they come in there very impassioned. They have children that, levels like that.
Yeah.
So they are coming in with all this information that has come to them. And I think they skipped a step. That's what I noticed. They assume that everybody knows what they know. So I'm aware in this community, one of my goals is the information that I have accumulated. When I sit before you, I can't say, take my word for it, I've read it. It's like,
Where's your evidence?
it's
That's
like
what
I have
say.
seen the light. It's that kind of stuff. I can't. So I can give you all of that information, and the sources are, as I talk about these universities, these are people who have been around the world and worked on the big studies, the C8 studies, the DuPont studies, the New Jersey Water Institute. They are the experts of the experts. We have them here. So what I would propose and ask you to consider is, I think it would be worthwhile. I do see the issues with everybody has, their angle, and I'm not a big believer in raising, a riot. So if we look at an advisory council and we look at maybe somebody from the town council, an elected representative, an MVD, and someone such as myself, and we do that, and we have some sort of an advisory committee that meets monthly or something. I haven't done anything like that here. I've done it elsewhere in other capacities. And that would be for the sharing of information, because we have different groups that don't have the same information. MVD had told me that we know where they're in negotiations, right? But the filters are supposed to be here in January, and it's March. Now I've
The
heard
filters,
wells 4 and 5 are supposed to have temporary filters
Right.
provided
Isn't
by
they-
St. Gobain.
it is here already, isn't it? It's
They
just
are
not
not.
They
installed.
said no.
If they have
I
arrived,
thought
then
it
they're
arrived.
recently arrived, but they hadn't arrived last I heard. I asked them in February,
Eileen?
February 28th.
Did you?
Just from what I understand, they're trying to get it up and running by the summer months when the need is
Greater.
significant.
But they
Yes.
are here.
I don't know if they're
Oh.
here.
February 28th, they
Maybe
were
I
not here.
Misunderstood. Bill?
Yeah.
Can we find out?
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's,
So the minutes on
well, it
MVD
matters
are
only in the sense
January
that you know
29th.
what's going on.
Well,
Because it would filter out. I mean, if you can filter out 4 and 5, not only do you have a resource in terms of having it, but if
I didn't
you,
mean it that way.
but if
So-
the concentration needs to be diluted,
So here
then
is
you
an
have a
example
resource.
of
So it does-
information sharing.
No, the timing of when they were going to get here was never definite.
They did state publicly by the mid-January, then they moved at the end of January, and MVD did confirm
Right,
that.
that's what I
Every other
yeah.
thing that I looked at, when I looked at it, I said, they don't know when they're going to get these, because it's contingent on what's going on in New York.
Well, we
New
know
York
New
is
York's
set.
already been set.
Yeah, it's the
They have the
filters
permanent
currently
in.
are parallel with the temporary filters are still there. I heard about a week ago, and the
Okay.
permanent filters are up and running.
Right.
Well, not up and running, but there. And I think they haven't turned them on yet because they have litigation there. They're trying to get the town to sign off to say when they turn this on, no one will ever
I rest
ask
my
for another
case.
penny. So isn't that interesting? In the town, the new mayor in the town, they have a mayor there, says, I'm not willing to do that. So very interesting. So they went silent with MVD when MVD said, Because look, they have plenty to do. They said, hey, you guys are bringing them out here, thanks. Now, are you going to pay to maintain them, and will you
Right,
put them in?
They're
Silence.
negotiating with
They're
us. That's right.
negotiating. So that's, this is the second largest corporation in the world. So if that sounds inflammatory, I am a little inflamed
Right.
over that. I am a little like, come on.
But that's the legal world.
They have
That's the
3
problem.
litigations, huge suits going, one
They
in
can't
state,
take-
2 out of
they
state.
can't say
They're going to
scrap.
lose.
Because they,
And you
whatever
know what
they
the
say is
lawyers
gonna
are
be held
asking for?
against
So
them.
I went and I asked the attorneys, and I said, so, maybe you'll tell me this, maybe you're not, because I'm just curious. I'm not involved in this at all. What are you asking for? Obviously, people have health things that they feel are related, and damages, and what could it be, real estate values? And they said the standard in cases like this is blood testing for all residents, biohealth monitoring that will be done properly, and
Longitudinal.
filtration. I said, of the private wells? They said, no, the public water. I said, so you guys are going to sue them, and they're going to filter all of the MVD water? They said they will when we win.
Got nothing to lose.
Who knows
That's right.
when? That's kind of interesting. So you're thinking what I was thinking. Wells 4 and 5 are going to get temporary filtered. The engineers are going to find a solution. We put them on, and our numbers will come down. Phenomenal. That's what I thought also.
It doesn't solve the fundamental, should it be there at all.
Right.
Well, yes and no. So let's leave that aside.
Whatever.
Can't
So
undo the past.
temporary
That's a whole different
filtration that they have,
That
pump
won't happen.
400 to 500 something or others, I don't remember what that term was, that doesn't support wells 4 and 5 simultaneously. These filters aren't strong enough. So that's something that I know. And how do I know that? Here I am,
Right.
sitting on French
Right.
Court. They're not. They can do one or the other. They can't even do 4 and 5. We've been hearing about the temporary filters for 4 and 5. I've been assuming for months. They're going to go on there. It's going to be a short-term solution. We'll figure out the long-term solution. Those wells have to come back online so we have enough water. Now I'm reading that Bedford, they're
So
proposing to hook up with the
This is an example of
MVD.
information sharing that you're
Yes.
talking about. Okay.
I
Because
can-
we've been long in the tooth, so we need to be able to
Yes.
finalize.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't want to give you any more.
That's all right.
Take my word for it. I can come up with at least 10 things, but you don't have the time for that. It'll be information that I may have that you may not have. You should have that information. I'm a resident. You're the town council. That's why I think it's really important for people to sit and put their heads together and share that information on a regular basis. I have state information, MVD information,
And
expert
what did
information.
MVD you propose this to?
MVD, I have talked with them about who we are.
Right, but
And
you, about
information
wanting to do
about-
that advisory, did you talk to them about wanting to have that advisory?
Having an advisory? No, I thought I'd come here
We're the
first.
first.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was just curious on whether you brought it up.
Chain of command or something,
No?
I don't know.
Okay, okay.
We're separate.
I know.
I
We're
know you're
separate. We know.
separate. I know how
I'm
it
hearing
works.
That's
words,
what we're
but I
trying
don't
to
know-
piece it
I don't
all
know what to say.
together.
Yeah,
This
but
is
D,
playing a game, come on.
I'm sorry,
What?
Tom,
They're
say
playing
again.
a game, come
Who?
on. They know we're separate and then they come here first.
well, I know you're separate, but I come here first because it's my town. The town council, we're residents of the town. I can't say, hey,
We have no
MVD,
control over the water. It's not our business.
but your business is, I also want to be upfront about what's going on in the community. Like, if I'm going to have a support group, I want you to know that I have a support group. If I'm going to work
That's what
with
I'm saying.
out-of-state
Informational, it's been good.
Massachusetts Northeastern folks who want to help us do a health study, which is gathering the data. We have 7 blood results from private well owners in this state. That's it. Out of this data is being gathered since last year. So, who's paying for the data? We know who's paying. So I'm a little suspect about how it's being implemented, but that data will come. That data will come. So now we have to look at, for private wells, they look at what's your level in the well, what's your blood level, how's your health. That's in a nutshell. Public water, that was the intent, to take 200 samples. Why they don't want to take volunteers and screen them, screen them.
We spoke to
Can I-
that, we spoke to that, right?
Yes,
You
yes.
know about that,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Bill?
I was just going to say that, respectful, if I could, Madam Chair.
Please, anybody can say anything as long as they're respectful, in my opinion. Go for
The
it.
affected communities had a meeting with former Governor Hassan at the time, and I had the audience included DHHS and DES. And I had asked, through the governor, to DHHS to do a random sampling of our community, a statistic random sampling, blood sampling, so that this community could have an understanding how, and Nancy's the nurse, my wife's a nurse, and Nancy alluded to it earlier, how big is the cluster, how small is the cluster? And the only way you can do is you have to randomize the sampling.
Right.
It's
For it to
not
be
like
valid.
you cannot take 200 people off the street, because 200 people probably could have moved into London Court within the last 3 weeks.
But they could screen them. They could screen
And
and
It would still
choose.
invalidate the results.
It has to validate the results, which is why you need to have a blending of somebody like Tom, who's lived in the community for
Right,
30-some odd
right,
years, versus somebody
absolutely.
like myself.
So do you
40, I
think when they're
apologize.
sending out those letters that they are, what criteria are they using other than just sending out random letters, computer-generated randomization is what they said?
Well, yes, they're doing it randomly.
Right.
But when they put the data together, that's where the data analysis
Yeah.
comes in.
If 200 samples are representative of 27,000
And then if there's any,
residents.
yeah, impression of it leaning, they'll do more.
They'll do more.
Correct.
I do get
That's
that.
correct.
I'd
That
like
was
to
the
see
whole
them
point, 'cause if
get
there
to that
was-
number.
If there was an indication,
Yeah.
and this was, I'll tip my hand, if there was an indication of a huge cluster, it was going to be the first thing I'm saying, you need to test more people.
But
You
how
need to
would you
te-
know there was an indication?
Because you
Because
see
when the
that
result- you can see
statistically
when
when you
the results come
results.
out.
I thought you meant I thought
When
you
the
meant prior
results
to.
get published,
Excuse me, I
you would have an
misunderstood.
And
understanding
you would
as to
com-
how large of an impact,
And you would
or how
compare them.
small of an impact it is.
You'd have to identify variables involved in it too.
Absolutely.
What other kind of variables exist within your community, and you'd correspond that with other communities that have
Right.
similar indications.
Yes.
To see if there's corresponding variables.
Right.
And the other
So
point
that's
that's,
only, you can understand how complex that is.
and the other point, not to diminish the conversation that we've had tonight, but when this first thing happened, we were in the middle of a drought, and a lot of our wells were not at full percolation. So,
Concentration.
so
Yeah.
to be honest with you, to me, the data in April and May, when the snow finally melts off and everything starts filtering through and our wells, go back to the levels, we're probably going to have a better indication of the impact on these particular wells.
The impact on which wells? The ones that
All
are
of them.
offline?
All
Are you
of them.
following the weekly
Yeah,
test
yes.
samples? I have them all printed out.
I
Yeah.
read them.
They've been pretty
the-
consistent.
But to dovetail off of Tom, it's meaningless because we don't have really a say as to what
We have no
they're doing with the
authority.
wells.
Right.
If it was me, I would have said, you're going to write the check, you're going to put them in, and then
Absolutely.
we'll deal with what Saint-Gobain deals with us afterwards. Because there's
Absolutely.
no way to be perseverating over this issue. 'Cause
Yeah.
all it does, the lack of communication, the lack of action, only just perpetuates the fear of either inaction or we don't care, which is farther from the truth.
A lot of people interpret it that way. Yes, yes.
Well, I'd like to be able to start wrapping some things up.
Yeah.
I think, I just want to make a global statement. I think there's frustration on both sides, and this is trying to be observant. There's frustration on this end because there are varying beliefs of the severity of the problem and the frustration that we feel because we have no authority over anything.
Right.
And the expectation is put upon us that we do, and we don't. And no matter what we say, it keeps on coming back to us. On the other hand, I do appreciate that we are representatives of the citizens of Merrimack, and the health of Merrimack citizens has to be important to us. And so that's why I think we've been very active from the very beginning to make sure that things that should be done are being done, whether it be from the state level, MVD. And MVD, in my opinion, and I've said this from day one, has been responsive from day one. They've gone above and beyond the call of duty. For example, on the blood samples, they gave the data, and I was on the water site, and people going crazy because they didn't know the facts. And it's the one time I posted on that where, well, what if you live in a condo? They're not going to get it. If you're in an apartment, you're not going to get it.
They did
And I
clarify
called MVD, and they said they went out of their way, and if it was a condo, they went to the town website, and they went on to the avatar and who actually owned that condo, and they got that data. Now, to me, that demonstrates how seriously they're taking it.
Yes.
And when I see or hear things saying that they're not doing what they can do, that's an example of exactly evidence of the opposite. So I think you're feeling some frustration from us in responding to that kind of thing. And also, I'm sensitive to concern but not panic. And what's that difference? And there's legitimate, and Jackie, I'm responding, and again, I'm going to open it to everybody, but I'm trying to summarize. Just like climate that whole debate on climate issues. There are debates about the validity or the severity of those kinds of things too. And you've got one extreme versus another, and somehow the middle has to be represented. And we react to those both extremes. And contamination was one of those bingo words.
Yeah. Sorry, I used that word.
No, but I mean,
Just
but I think people
concern.
need to dispassionately understand that,
Right.
because we are representing Merrimack. And that is a component, but we don't want it to be seen as a toxicity either, because that's not reality. Is it concern? Yes.
Yes.
And will I be proven wrong? If I am, I'll be the first one to say I'm wrong. But with the data that we have so far, we cannot say that. So I think that's the parameter that you're dealing with from this board in terms of response. And you can tell me that I'm right or wrong, but
Hammer on the nail.
I'm just trying to summarize it to you. Okay? And I think it's great. I think you're coming forward to educate the public about your availability and what you're doing. Right on money. That's what this forum is for. There's absolutely nothing. But I think we get some frustration that we're getting a sense that we should be doing more. We are doing what we can do.
I do
think
realize
that's-
Yeah,
that.
no, we weren't
Absolutely.
expecting.
No, but I'm saying
No,
I
no,
think
no.
that's
And this, I didn't want to hand this out so everybody would be reading it when I'm talking, but you'll read it and you'll see.
excellent.
I
Yeah.
just want you to know that this isn't a threat. This isn't an inflammation, increase. This is truly, I'm very concerned. People I've heard from are
Absolutely.
concerned, and it's about accurate information.
Yep,
And data is
absolutely.
where it's at, and I think one of the roles of our group is to gently push for data. That's not you. You're not going to make that happen. I know that. But just so
we are
you know what
reinforcing
we're
that
about.
push
Yes, yes.
for data.
We need that data because
That's
the
right.
little that we have, and it was interesting to me in January that out of that, the way they grouped the data with only 7 of the blood tests from Merrimack residents, they have more data than that from those well owners. Amherst blood results were released in a whole different way, very responsibly. So I'm wondering, behind
Why?
the scenes, but I
Why?
know who's paying for the work to be done, and so I'm like,
Again,
So-
you're jumping,
Yeah.
and you may be right or not, but you will get a knee-jerk reaction from me that you will automatically think that because you're coming from that point of view. If I'm in a different point of view, is don't jump there when you don't have evidence.
But the 7 blood tests that we have from town are quite
Oh, yeah.
significant.
Right.
They're quite significant. And then I say, so when you have a
But
sample,
they are public,
yes,
they are transparent.
in group, the individuals have their own.
Right.
Yeah, they have to
Eileen?
keep it private.
I pressed the the current commissioner or the acting commissioner of DES to give me the results for the the 7 Merrimack residents.
That's right, you did.
And he told me they don't have that information. They have not gotten down to that level yet. And if anybody has any...
Would you like to hear from a resident who's here who does have her individual results? And
She may have her own personal results, but I don't know, I mean, you can't, I don't believe you have all the results of all 7.
So he doesn't want to, okay.
Do
He doesn't
you?
want to release them till all
He
7?
has the individual results. He has sent letters to all 7 folks. They have them.
Do you have
here
them?
Here in town, we do have some. We have this interesting movement that was not solicited. It was people saying, when I get my buzz results, can I give them to you? So I look at that and I say, oh boy, this is, well, black out your name, black out your address, and I'm going to number everybody. Okay,
Yeah,
we're going to
that's
do
good.
number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to keep the master list back with the person because that's what we have to do ethically. I know
Correct.
about that kind of stuff. You know what I'm
Correct.
talking about. So I am, records.
Confidentiality.
Yeah, so I have that in mind. So people are saying, when I get my results, I want you to have them. And I'm thinking, who am I, But evidently somehow fallen into this role. There are some good folks working with us who do this. This is what they do. The health study folks from BU are phenomenal. They're absolutely phenomenal. So I run everything by them, ethically and everything else, because people are of the mindset that they themselves are going to put that data together because they want it counted together. And I think I had an impression in talking to the MVD, it's an impression only, they were careful with their words, but then we spoke afterwards and they talked a little freer when everybody left. So I'm wondering if someone is funding and negotiating with them, what terms are they setting? In terms of, they have to protect themselves, this corporation.
Yeah.
You know, they know there's legal action. So of course, you know, there's a little bit of
So we don't
guarding
know.
of the data.
We don't
They
know.
have access to it, though. They have it all.
Interesting.
So it is very interesting. That's why I think it's important to find a way to have a meeting that people can share. I have a lot of information. It's factual, most of it. It really is. And that is what I would like to have shared in the community. I think if we all had the same information, it would be real interesting. I think people would be not in a panic by any means, you know, not in a panic, but it's very interesting, some of the behind-the-scenes things that I've kind of found by talking to various people. I think it's time for them all to talk to each other, because we have some phenomenal, committed people in the state of New Hampshire, amongst yourselves and in every town on the state level. But
Okay.
getting together, because it's a little bit of divide and conquer going on. Deals are being made, I think, with DES and DHHS and MVD, and they're all talking behind the scenes to some level, because the goal of a corporation is to minimize litigation, ultimately. Right? I just plain and simple. Yeah, but that data, you know, we'll get the data. People in town are saying, hey, I'm going to share that information. Part of why they're doing that is kind of sad. They're saying, so now that I have it, what does it mean? You know? Right. So that's why we need to get the physicians in touch with these experts who can advise them, because physicians are saying, I don't know what that is.
Right.
Or reference librarian in town is great. I went in to reserve a room for support group, and she said, oh, a PFOA support group? What's that? That was kind of, the reference librarian, that was kind of
There's some
interesting.
very educated, bright people who don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so why don't we finish this? Now, any other comments from any of the counselors? Okay, well, I think what we understand what you're asking for. I think I personally would just want to sit on it and think about it for a little bit. Anybody have any suggestions? Want to table it for the moment?
Sit on, I don't understand what you're saying.
Do we want to make any decisions tonight? The answer is,
Nancy, what are you considering?
well, I'm not considering anything. They've talked about getting a group together, a counselor, MVD, and a
Setting up an
representative.
advisory group, advisory committee, whatever you would call it,
I mean, if
with
it's,
a representative from each faction.
I think sharing information can occur regardless of that.
I agree.
But
I agree. And if they, you know, whether or not it needs to be like with some of our formal volunteer committees in town, are they looking for something like that? If they're not, if this is just a strict ad hoc, you know, council outside that's independent,
right.
Not to get talking about volunteer committees, but I think we recognize the limitations that we've had trying to find volunteers for the variety of committees that we have on. So I think it would be premature to entertain, I think, making and formalizing some type of a volunteer committee dedicated to this particular issue. That being said, if an invitation was offered by Laureen and Carol to you, seeking a town council representative, I would be more than happy to participate in that council.
As a volunteer.
As a volunteer, I'd be happy to do it.
But, okay, but then would that be an official representative from the town council?
That would be a separate vote, whether or not they would want to
Right.
recognize
That's-
the legit, and that's
the discussion.
That's the
Yes, Dan.
discussion.
Just let's make it easy.
Dan.
Volunteer as a citizen.
That's what I'm thinking.
and I'm happy to do that.
That's what I'm thinking.
Nothing to stop you from having as many volunteers as you can
I agree.
gather and
Yep.
have a committee.
And
Obviously,
he
any
can communicate that
that's gathered
information
from us
back to
will be
us.
shared.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the goal. Because I think there's about 2 little things that I told you tonight that you didn't know.
Right.
And I know it, and you don't know it. You should know it. You should know it.
It's
You're
okay
our
with me
leaders.
if it's okay with you, Bill. Again,
Absolutely.
it's not an official representative, but it's your personal, voluntary,
Yep.
and then you could just,
And I'm happy to liaise back to the council to provide information.
it's not an official.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you for coming, and good luck to you, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know it's a lot of work, and We only have the tip of the iceberg. You've got the whole iceberg. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we've got minutes from February 16th.
Madam Chair, we have Thursday, February 16th, make your minutes with the following modification.
You have to put your mic.
Madam Chair, I move the Town Council special meeting minutes of Thursday, February 16, 2017, with the following modification.
Yeah,
In the entire document, wherever it says viva voce roll call, replace it with voice roll call, because I know that
yep, that
that is the
happened
cause of
before.
concern for Councilor Koenig, and I wanted to recognize that.
Yep, excellent.
Other than that, that's all I had.
Who evidently can't do it himself.
Trouble with Latin, Tom?
He was raised.
Okay, any other changes? Okay, so a motion is made by Bill Boyd with correction, second.
Wants to say something.
Oh,
I'll second it.
I appreciate.
I see a
Yeah.
waving.
On page 5,
Oh, we have a correction from
line
Paul.
15, we were
Yeah.
talking about $3.3 million bond?
Yes,
Not a $3 million bond?
thank you for that catch.
Good catch, Paul.
Yeah. Bond
Yeah.
counsel would trip over that.
So a second by Tom, did you second? Did I hear you say Tom Kenny? Okay, motion regarding passing of the minutes with those corrections. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? 1. And that abstention would be Dan Dwyer, so it's 601, because he was sunning himself.
He's unnaturally dark for March.
We gave you some heat when you were gone, so don't worry about it. Comments from the press? None. From the public? None. Comments from the council? I'd like to start my comment by mentioning that this is Tom Mahan's last meeting. I know we had an official grand sayonara thing when you left last time, but I didn't want to go unnoticed that this is going to be your last meeting, and that, huh?
Thank you.
And that we've appreciated your continued assistance to us in your interim, as always, helpfulness to us during this time. And I know that you're changing your life in terms of eventually moving to be close to your daughter. So there's a lot of changes in your life coming about. So I wish you good luck and health. And I'm just wondering, 5 years from now, will you be talking to someone in your new town saying, well, when I was in Merrimack, this is the way we did
I'll still be going
it.
back to Pelham.
This is the way we did it in Merrimack. And those people will say, if we hit Merrimack one more time, we're going to scrape. So anyway, good luck to you. And I just want to make sure it didn't go unnoted.
Well, just keep in mind, it's taken Eileen 5 years to get over Laconia or Somersworth. So,
We don't hear it as much.
I dispute that.
Respectfully. Yeah. Any other comments? Finley?
Yeah, and I too want to thank Tom. He could have done it electronically via phone link, like Bill did, I suppose, but maybe not residing here made it difficult. But you will be missed by me, for sure. Just one quick thing. I think a quick comment that I had made during that meeting, I think as I thought back on it, it maybe sounded like I didn't believe PFOA's cost cancer. I definitely believe they do. So if it was interpreted that way, that wasn't the way I meant it. It just apparently misspoke, at least in my own mind. The perfect amount would be 0. And filtration should happen, in my opinion. It's not my job to get done at this point. I do believe in it and would like to see that ultimately happen. And to get it as back to pure as possible, but that's where I believe it should ultimately be, and we'll go from there. We'll see what happens, but it was a lot of information I can see that has been garnered, and that's nice. So, thank you.
Any other comments, Jackie?
Yes, and I also want to say my fond goodbyes to Tom, and I think we'll still see him around Merrimack for a little while, and I wish you luck in being able to get on with your life.
Thank you.
Your next phase of your life.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all the sentiment and thanks. And like I said last year, it's been a lot of fun. You're great people to work with. We've done a lot of good things together. We've really solidified this form of government in this town. And unfortunately, it has caused a continued reduction in participation at the polls.
We should make a comment about that.
Oh,
But-
yeah.
But, yeah, as you said, again, thank you for taking me back for the interim, and this time this is for real. This is it.
You're going to change your mind again, right?
No.
You want to say, Dan?
I want to say that, in particularly for Tom, that we had said the first time when you had left, the decades that you've given to the town, just immeasurable. There's a handful of people in town who've been here as long and who have, really dedicated to a lot of community service. But you coming back that second time when we had a group of 3 people who were, interested in the seat, and it was nothing against the other ones who were wanting to serve, but taking you back was really easy for all the work and the knowledge that you brought. So as for one counselor who started in 2010, just thank you for all the things that you've done. Very much appreciated. And your friendship as well.
Yeah.
Bill?
When we had this last conversation with the unofficial Tom Mahon roast, I had commented that Tom was not just a friend, and not just a colleague, but a mentor. I meant it. I stand by it. And this institution and this community is going to miss his experience. And hopefully a little bit of all of us as we move forward will be able to succeed, and we'll wear our bracelets that'll say WWTS, what would Tom Mahon say, so
That could mean a lot of things.
could mean a lot of things. Absolutely.
That covers a lot of territory.
I had suggested to Nancy that if and when the radio tower comes down from Town Hall, we could give that to Tom as a parting gift, so that you can set up your ham radio operations at your
That was pretty good.
at your new abode. And lastly, for my wife and I, especially for me growing up as a kid, my home away from home was Biddeford Pool, Maine. I love Maine. And I am thrilled that Tom and his wife are going to be going to where the way life ought to be. And it's not a lobster, it's a bug. But my sled dog races in the fall and the winter in Westbrook, and do expect an email from me to let you know that I'll be in town for the weekend, and hopefully you can come watch the dogs and have a shipyard. That would be really cool. But I wish you and your family nothing but happiness and health, and saying that you're going to be missed just doesn't really encapsulate the feeling. So thank you very much for what you've given to Merrimack. It's been appreciated.
Tom?
And of course, I couldn't pass up an opportunity to echo all of the words of my colleagues. Having known you for 22 years and serving on the Space Needs Committee back in '95, and working with you all these times since then.
That was Merrimack's version of the Bosnian peace talks.
It absolutely was, and you did an amazing job in helping to steer us through that issue. But as everybody else has said, we've gained so much from your experience and your willingness to share. And thank you for that. Thank you for stepping up to come back and help us out this past year. And wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
I just want to make watch this segue. One thing you're going to miss is the new garage that's going to be voted in on April 11th. Right?
Right.
Because it's really important. We know that the community acknowledges the importance and the legitimacy and the real smart financial method by which we're doing it. See? Was that a good segue?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure to reemphasize that. please, if you vote for nothing else, because they're uncontested races. I know that there are a lot of people don't feel the need to get out, but it really is important that we need to get a supermajority, which is what, 60?
67, two-thirds.
Two-thirds, okay.
That doesn't mean we need 67 people, does it?
No, we need the percentage. So all this council can do is, the big thing, remember, one of the bonds is stopping, it's expiring. This new bond would take its place so that there is no increase in the tax rate as a result. That's what people had a problem with last time. We've been able to accomplish that. It's the most financially clean. We've had a lot of presentations, but all inexpensive comparatively. We're refurbishing what we have, and then we're building another section in the back. So all we can do is strongly encourage you to, one, go out, even if it's only for that. So thank you, and that was pretty good, wasn't it? Considering?
Very good.
I'm glad I remembered.
You did that job well.
Anything else? Motion to, sorry, Elaine.
I think going to visit it, having people in the public actually going down to the facility and taking a look at what it's like, it really is atrocious. It's a terrible place for these poor people to work. It's not safe, and it's not sufficient size, and I normally don't say things like this, but it's so important to get this passed. It's as I said before, I normally, if something didn't pass, I wouldn't bring it back again, but it would be irresponsible of us not to bring this back, albeit in a little bit different form, but it's just that important.
Right. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By Bill Boyd, second by Dan Dwyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you.